What's good, YouTube and Twitch? We're live streaming to both, and I have not had this much stress in a long time from you guys. I asked for some of your best and worst banless takes for July, and people seriously don't remember why certain cards were banned in history, like, oh, triple tactic talents is a thing, change of heart and snatch steal can come back, I tell you what. Snatch steal came back once, and it went back away right the next list for very good reasons. Whenever you can perma-take your opponent's resources and time it, sure, they could try to get it back with something like, say, Tornado Dragon or the Nightmare Phoenix, but no, Snatch Steal, just being able to grab your opponent's resource and link summon, XE summon, Synchro summon, all the different summons we have now, that's a bit powerful versus triple tactics having an activation requirement, you pick and choose, and that sort of stuff. So let's go ahead and get into some of these worst banless takes. Electromite being what? Banned is a bad banless take. I do agree it should actually come off, and it is on our list. If Isolde is running free, if Halka Fibrax is running free, some Morglink is running free, all these crazy enablers, why is Electromite left on the list other than Pendulum Hate? And you're doing things like Sulfa Cord, and you Metal Foes support, and Metal Foes is in the name. I do think that Electromite should be free to 1, depending on what else stays or comes off the list. Now let's go ahead and get into some of the more topical July ban list stuff, right? A lot of people arguing over your boy Alistair, and Invoked has been around too long. It comes back into like every format. I personally think Invoked is fine. If you're gonna hit the deck though, hit Alistair direct. I see a lot of people saying Meltdown's the problem card, slim that down, and it's perfectly fine. This is where people, they activate Meltdown, and you just slap him with the Drone Lockbird. That's how you really get them. Like, Meltdown is usually bait, and really hit Alistair, the card they fuse with, the card that really becomes the problem card otherwise. Like, you slim that down if you're going to hit the engine, but I don't think it necessarily needs to get hit. Also topical are shaddolls. Shaddoll Schism is a huge part of the conversation because Shaddolls weren't problematic till it, and it helps a very small engine become a huge problem with Wenda being a self-protecting floodgate. Well, doesn't a self-protecting floodgate sound familiar that's on the ban list that people hope to come back to 1 and other people sanely want banned still? I used to be on the fence. I love Thunder. I was like, yeah, let it come back to 1. It got hit too early. I think Colossus honestly deserves to stay on the list, and people would play a small Thunder engine into deck just to make Colossus if it were a thing rather than playing Thunder Dragons. That's what we're kind of seeing here with Wenda. So I think Wenda, even though it's the problem in the board card, is not the problem card. I would leave Shaddolls to do their things modern days, and I would just be hitting Shaddoll Schism, the thing that created it to be a problem. Now, Nadir Servants talked about a lot in terms of it does help them plus, it helps them go into the Shaddoll stuff. It should be hit or limited to, 1 or 2, but I don't think they're going to do that until they sell it in the 2021 Megatons. So while I do think it's actually appropriate to hit this on a list, I don't think necessarily that it will get hit. Also, I should have introduced the video with this. We have confirmed a remote dual YCS on July 10th, I believe. So either the list will happen, probably announced earlier, like July 24th or whatever, and then we have time to prepare, or they're going to be like, people have gotten their cards, they've invested in their cards, they're going to, be this way about them, and so we need to let them play and do the ban list after, and it's supposed to replace the WCQ. WCQ lists are usually very minimalistic, so it will be interesting to see if Konami really wants to shake things up ahead of time, or if the list actually happens after the YCS. So we will see if our July ban list happens before or after. Now, let's go back to some hot takes. I personally think Orcust Harp Horror is okay to enter back into the format. You have Scrap Raptor coming. Gearsu failed terribly for what it did, and I think Harp Horror really give the deck a little love. They hit it so harsh where they whittled away all the other Eternal format decks. Put it at 1 and see what it does and how it does, and then if it is a mistake, hit it again, but it got slammed where every other deck just had Salomon Great multiple list, you had Sky Striker multiple list. Give this a bit of a chance. People want to hit Dragon Link real bad. Quick Launch is in the discussion, which I do find a bit of a problematic card, but I would rather see something specifically like their initial starter, Striker Dragon, to get hit, and you do need to hit multiple things. I think LP should probably be banned as well, and when I say hit, I mean banned straight up for Striker Dragon, because these, if it's at 1, they'll just play the one and continue to go into it. I think that you really need to choke out some of these cards. Now, people did point out that Quick Launch is kind of an E-Telly for the deck, although it's specifically Rockets, not all Dragons, and that, you know, you have E-Telly on the list. I think Quick Launch is fine if you take out Striker Dragon, you make them go through multiple more steps, but no matter how many times you do hit Dragon Link, I think that you're going to continue to see them do their thing. So, yeah. No, Dogmatica is so silly. Like I said, I think they need to hit Dogmatica in some way, shape, or form, but usually decks like this last until they're Megatons. That's why I'm saying, chat, that I do think that it needs to get checked and balanced, but it probably won't for some time. Let's go towards more hot takes. The Dragon Rulers, they should all be free. I absolutely agree that Blaster should be freed. I think Tidal has a lot of applications with the new Deep Sea cards. Mermail Atlanteans helps them go even further beyond, and they're already pretty consistent at their looping, and I see that I need to update my malware bytes. Oh no, I've been exposed, chat. But yeah, Tidal is problematic in its own form and fashion, so maybe I'd be more cautious about freeing that one. And then Redox is the most insane with its Monster Reborn-like effect, but is it the worst? Could we see a format with all of them as long as Dark Matter stays banned? I guess you could try it, but I definitely think Blaster should be the next one if you peel off only one Dragon Ruler. Next up, we have Regeki to 3. I don't think that's a hot take. I think it could come to 3. You have Dark Ruler no more and evenly matched, realistically, more proficient at wiping boards. Regeki to 3 is a fine take. Going back into our format, the hotter takes, ban Dragoon, it's too many decks, it's so problematic. I think that's actually dropped off of a lot of people's conversations, even though it got hit in the OCG, but yet I would say half of the people that were still vying for it are still going after it, and it splits into 3 factions. I want the Fusion banned, I want the Verte banned, I want Dragoon banned himself. I say take out the problem card if you're going to, but Konami, seeing this at $75 to $80, probably is going to reprint it and cash in again, rather than straight up banning it in the TCG. Dinosaurs, I feel like, could use a check and balance if we're check and balancing a ton of things. Miss is the obvious answer to me. Other people want to see Fossil Dig hit, the generic Rhoda of the deck. That could go to 1, 2, sure. But I think Miss is the realistic hit of either to 1 or banned again if you're doing it, and I personally vie for 1. I want Mystic Mine banned. That's just me. I think mine's a toxic floodgate card that really goes up there with, like, macros at 1, but this, you know, is fine at 3. At least put it to 1, if not ban it. Prankins need some kind of hit in form and fashion to a lot of people. I think Prankins are fine how they are, but people want the Link 1 hit? No, you don't ban that. I think you might limit one of the Prankins to 1s to stop their realistic looping Link summoning, but I don't think it needs to get hit personally. I think that's more of a hot take and that it's fine where it's at. Alright, what's this going to say?
Ban White and Black Collar Serpent to make Dragon Link weaker while also making Chaos Space weaker.
I don't think you need to make Chaos Space weaker yet, but that is also an interesting conversation of a lot of draw cards end up on the list. Will Chaos Space end up at some point? I think it could. What is a controversial ban list talk without Maxx C? Maxx C to 3. Either 3 or 0. You don't put it at 1 and 2. I'm personally of 0, but it goes into the conversation with other cards on the list like Call by the Grave, or we haven't got Crossout Designator. Ash Blossom hits this now. It really checks and balances a lot of the special summon decks, gives power to the back row decks. I think Maxx C is fine where it's at 0, but you know, could go to 3. In-depth conversation the stream had. They want Spellbook of Judgment back, a lot of you guys. I think absolutely not. It's insanely powerful, but they do make a pretty good argument that in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! It doesn't do enough with its crazy activations and you need to last till next turn. I don't like seeing a deck sit behind the powerful, upgraded, floodgated Jowgen and going in personally, but I could see why people would think that it would be okay in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Too. Speaking of powerful cards in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Engage stays at 0. Chat wants it back to 1 for certain people. Other people are saying and don't. This searchable, recurrable, Pot of Greed for a deck? No, absolutely not. It stays banned. Like, Nadir Servant isn't searchable, right? This is straight up searchable and crazy. Upstart Goblin to 3 is an interesting conversation, but I dislike that it lets you basically just play less cards and get to your 1-up searchers, but it does get punished by Droll Lockbird, Imperial Order. It does have checks and balances, but just adding extra spell counters, playing less cards, playing more of your power cards, I think that's not really great Yu-Gi-Oh! Like I said, Electromite absolutely should come back. If the other cards are out there free, like Halka Fibrax, yes, bring it back. And speaking of Hulk, if you hit enough things, this becomes the top format meta again, despite everything that you've hit with it. So I think Hulk, if you're going to check and balance Electromite, start check and balancing things like this. Some people want Red Reboot back to 3. I say it stays at 1 or gets banned. You just want to mash your combo buttons and pop off with your cards and ignore every purple card. Yeah, I'm really tired of Ice Dragon's Prison. Dude, this card is so unfair, and you have to have a counter trap to stop it, where stuff like Feather Duster can get hit with an Imperial Order, or, you know, Solemn is at 3, but like this, you need to have the Solemn for it, and that's kind of crazy. This absolutely stays at 1. My most sane, probably banlist hope, but might not happen, is Zeus to 1. I think Zeus still sells in the Megatons, even if you hit it to 1. It's an extra deck card, and many one-ofs in the extra deck are still very powerful. I'd like to see Zeus to 1, just like Exciton Knight, you know, got checked and balanced a lot back in the day. This absolutely needs to be going to 1. Ah, another dono.
Ban Dark Magician.
Ban Dark Magician, yeah, it attacks directly, very powerful. Hard agree. Hard agree takes care of the Dragoon package. Whew. That's one of the best takes we've had all day. Fairy Tail Snow, people want it back, and I just want to remind people, like Zeus, it's a card that can chain to itself, and I think that's absurd in Yu-Gi-Oh! If you have the resources, there's so many different decks that can just get it in the graveyard with those, and it can chain to itself, it can chum block, it can be used for link fodder, it can deal with your opponent's cards on their turn, flipping it face down with no hard once per turn or any once per turn clause. I think it's way too insane still for modern Yu-Gi-Oh! And it deserves its place on our list. I think Terror Top should stay at 1, but people are talking about selling sets. How many of those predictions have come true? Oh, E-Tully should come off the list in order to help sell mutants. Yeah, they didn't even make more mutants, did they? Or Electromite should come off to help didn't happen. So when people talk about Terror Top, a card that's literally tried to come off the list even more and then gets peeled back off, like, remember Salmon Greats were using it to make Mirage Stalio. That's insane that Salmon Greats went to that kind of power rather than in their own archetype. Yeah, I think Terror Top deserves its place at 1, and the new Speedroid upgrade should be playing how they do already, which will be pretty good, probably into the Rogue category, which has the striking range to win an event. That's my opinion, though. Yeah, Engage to 1, ban multi-roll. No, Engage stays banned. Engage stays banned, straight up. Trickstar Light Stage to 3 is an opinion in chat, even been a screen name of one of my mods before. I think that this deck, being able to search and lock down a back row as a 2-for-1 in this engine that continues to search through, and also offers people the ability to end up with a link up engine that got hit because of Nightmare Mermaid, if I recall. I think it still just stays there, but I could see why you could have an argument for coming back for that engine, but I prefer to see it be played as Trickstar the deck if you're playing it, rather than like, oh, I play this with Corbane and I lock down a back row for free. That's realistically why it's hit, in my opinion. Plushfire, I think you could put this at 1 and see what happens. Not all the way off to 3 immediately, just see if anything degenerate pops up. I don't think there's enough degeneracy with it at 1 to have anything happen with it. I also think Iris has done pretty much nothing at 1. I'd like to see it go to 3. I would like to see them play the Time Pendulum Graph Trap card that is pretty fun. I think Joker or Monkey could come back. You could put Monkey to 1 or Joker to 3, but not in a combination of each other where they fulfill scales and do crazy things together. I'd like to see either one peel off, though. Monster Reborn to 3. Chat has said this a lot tonight. Oh boy, this is where I get into it. Whenever I draw Monster Reborn in this current format, I feel like I win, even in my more subpar hands. Being able to use your opponent's resources or yours, if I combo off in Zoo and I make a Clops, I can then go up into Access Code Talker and Reborn my freaking Mega Clops. Like, depending on the hands, Monster Reborn just makes something that's already going greater, or saves a subpar hand, and with a non-once per turn clause on being able to use Link, you know, ratings and climb through them, I think it's too insane for modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, we haven't had Crossout Designator sold yet, and Call by the Grave comes up in a lot of discussions. I've changed my thoughts on Call by the Grave over time. I think it just really helps whoever's going first more than whoever's going second typically, and this card offers so much power to these one card combo starters that I agree with it at 1, and it just feels so terrible when somebody draws the one of, similar to the one ofs like back in the day, but it feels really almost lucky when somebody uses it on you, and it's really not healthy Yu-Gi-Oh! In my opinion, so I agree with it at 1 or none, rather than peeling it back to 3 personally. Yatagarasu, I think it absolutely could come off the list, but it's the oldest card on the ban list, and I like the ban list actually being a little history look through of Yu-Gi-Oh! And people asking why something's banned, and I also am not biased by having a BGS9 first edition Yata graded in my closet, where I hope that it stays on the ban list for ban list collecting smile. But I think it could peel off. I think that would be fine, theoretically, in Yu-Gi-Oh! It's more that what this card stands for is its status on the ban list. Tikaboo and Summon Limit came up as modern floodgates, since we're talking about stuff like Mystic Mine. I could see these going to 1. They're not as powerful as a lot of the floodgates on the ban list, but Tikaboo has popped back into format after format after format, so has Summon Limit, and I could see you limiting these limiting cards, so to speak. And I think the end of this, it should be very obvious. Pot of Greed, what does it do? You're so funny making a joke about Yu-Gi-Oh! When it comes to this, but people arguing for Pot of Greed back? No. Whoever sees it first gets a huge advantage. Like, you would have to make an agreement. Both players start with this, and then you're just playing with more cards. Absolutely freaking not. Mom, we have Pot of Greed at home, and its desires and extravagance and prosperity. There's a reason that these other cards have such a steep cost for what they offer, and people still play those. Absolutely no. People should not be having Pot of Greed back. Whatever argument you have, it just makes a more unfair environment for whoever sees it first in the duel and promotes more luck within our game. While people from other card games make fun of us for being scared of a draw too, I certainly see why it stays banned. That being said, anybody in open chat have any opinions to add at the end of this? No? Not at all? I see. I'm alone. That being said, please subscribe if you haven't already. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed the conversation. Thanks for being here with me live. If you were a part of this conversation, I super appreciate it, even if you had some of the worst takes ever. And thanks, I really do appreciate it. I think there's not much that'll happen with this next FNL list, despite all the cards we covered. I think it'll be a very minimalistic one if we have one, but hey, sometimes Konami really surprises us, comes out of left field, shakes something up super, and that could be crazy for the remote duel YCS as well.